Alright, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever. Happy New Year's coming up. So this is a game I played it was before Christmas, on some app. It was a really annoying app. Uh, there's a reason why we use these leechess.org or other websites. They're really streamlined for chess. They're designed for chess. These apps, they have all these like bells and whistles and all these like loading screens, and then every single time you make a move, it posts a message to Messenger and it spams your inbox for like 40 moves or whatever, and it's like, why? Like, just play in an enclosed app that has the PGN, gives you access to the PGN, and doesn't skip moves. I had to piece together this game. I'm pretty sure it's accurate, but some of the moves were missing. I may have transposed, so I'll let you know when. So I'm gonna do some live analysis here. I've looked at the game a few times, and I kind of remember it, but mostly just gonna go through it from White's perspective. My brother was playing White. He's older than me, in the army, lots of stuff. He's a crazy guy doing marathons and stuff. I played him chess before. I think he's beaten me before, but that was a couple of years ago. So uh, things have changed. Now I have to make a disclaimer here because I know, especially I don't want him to get butthurt. But besides that, it's not really about getting butthurt or say that. Anyway, it's not about like not hurting people's feelings or trying to step on tiptoe on glass or whatever. There's kind of a normal, this isn't just you, and it's not just, and I'm not really speaking about anything directly. I'm speaking about just most people who start learning chess and they start getting a little bit more into thinking about the game. Like, first you learn the game. There's a bunch of different stages. You don't know the game at all. You don't even know how the pieces move, and then you learn how the pieces move, you play a bunch of games, and you win for some reason, you don't know why, and you're just having fun with some friends or something, and the computer always beats you, of course, and, you might go online and get stomped, and you don't know why, and you keep playing, you don't know why, then you finally learn how to read the notation over here, and you can now record your games, and this is the moment. The moment that you go from absolute beginner to regular beginner. And it's a huge step. You get so much better when you start recording your games. What the biggest thing, besides being able to read chess books, even if you had no chess books in your life, if you played every single game, doesn't matter the time control, and thanks to computers we can record our games really easily, but even, recording games on the computer isn't always possible. So what you can do now is you can look over the game. And this is where a lot of people have issues. And when I say issues, what I really mean is that people start to feel defensive or feel like they suck, or they get all kinds of butt hurt, and this is completely normal. It takes a shift in thinking. It takes a shift into realizing that chess is not about you. It's not about... this game is already over. I actually explained this to a student once. When you play a chess game, at the time that you're playing it, it's your game. And you don't want to talk to your opponent. You don't want any outside help. It's just between you and your opponent. Whatever happens is right there. When the game's over, you get into this new shift in thinking where now you're saying, okay, this game is now a part of history. Let's look at it and see what both sides did and what they were trying to do and what we could have done better and possibly shift the game either way. And it's usually very early. It's usually the first 10, 12 moves. Later game is usually just janitorial work. It's usually just cleaning up pieces. It sounds so... I make it sound so simple and easy, but it's really a matter of pattern recognition and understanding not really several moves ahead. It's understanding the behavior of your piece formations. It's understanding that when you have a piece in a certain setup, like let's see right here. Okay, right now white has 3 pawns developed, which is, it's not too insane, but usually you want to develop a piece. Like, this is pretty standard for black, and I went for a Grunfeld, of course. That's what I always play as black against d4, pretty much always, unless I see something really specific. But I'm not trying to do any sort of attack. I'm not trying to checkmate, because that's not going to be possible. It's just a fact of the game. You're not going to be able to checkmate out of the opening, and if you do, it's because your opponent made a really big mistake, such as something like this. And then you go like this, and even worse, I think they do something like this. There. Well, that's not. Oh no, even worse. Here we go. Even worse. They do something like this. There you go. Oh, that's not even worse. Let's see. Let's try to figure this out here. If you go here, they open it up. It takes longer with the d4 opening, you see, because it requires them to make an even bigger mistake. Like, well, let's say they go here. And then you have this, even. And, it requires your opponent to make a big mistake. If you're looking at the board, you can avoid these kind of mistakes. That's why these kind of trick openings, these, Fool's Mate, Scholar's Mate, whatever, forget about those. Just, if you play good chess, you're not gonna fall for them. I mean, if you can see them, like, this is one, it's like, and if they go here or something, I don't know, that's not a good example. Either way, they're kings in the center, and this is not going to go well for black. You have this really active position as white. So, basic opening principles: get pawns out to the center, control this whole area, this center. Oops. You control these. Get your knights out to the center, putting more control over here, and get your bishop out of the way somewhere, and then castle. It's pretty straightforward. See, it doesn't really work. You can't just get a formula. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to do this every time. That might work for maybe certain specific openings, like against 1d4, black can always go this way. Black can always play these 3 moves. Pretty much. I have not... I mean, there's got to be a case where it's not that great, but I can't see any reason why you can't play these moves, because it's preparing to bishop. You're going to castle. You got pawn developed. You stopped this pawn from advancing. There's a lot of stuff you can do from that point, but from that's where the formula ends. That's where I have to start reacting to my opponent, because I mean, the first couple moves, especially with the d-pawn openings, you can play about 30 to 40 moves memorized on the queen's pawn opening, and especially the king's Indian stuff. So this is called a king's Indian when you play this knight here as black. And the idea usually is to play kind of more in the flanks, castle, and this Grunfeld defense is a little bit less hedgehoggy, which means a little bit less defensive, and a little bit more kind of direct. And there's the normal variation for that is usually white plays here. You usually go for this kind of setup with the queen's Indian. You'll want that pawn there later after this knight gets here, and you'll have control over these squares. Black is giving white the center, so you take it. If your opponent gives you something, usually there's another reason for it. They're not trying to trick you. And this is another kind of big issue a lot of beginner students have, is they think that because there's a forcing move, that if it's bad for them, that they shouldn't do it. And that is a no-no. No, 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 no. No, no, no. If your opponent's giving you a forcing move, there's a reason it's called forcing. It's because if you ignore that move, you will suffer for it. Your opponent will get a much better position, and you will not be happy at all. So your opponent, see, that's how you play chess. You force your opponent to make moves that will offset your piece connectivity, that will put you in a position that you're more comfortable with. Because everybody, see, that's really the whole choice of openings. It's more about what you're comfortable with, not with there's certain things like you don't want to do this. You don't want to do stuff like that. That's just asking to lose. You're giving your opponent the center for no reason. And if you even add insult to injury, you make it even worse. Bam. You just gave black the center for no reason. Oh yeah, let's continue doing this. Yeah. I've seen a lot of players just move every single pawn, especially usually kids do this. Adults do it too. I can't really put age to it. It's just chess age. Beginners do it. Of all ages do this. They'll move every single pawn to see what happens, and that's good. But eventually, you want to start understanding. You'll start seeing why this is just so much better for black. It's not even a contest. And I've tried telling the people this, and they don't believe me. And I'm just like, okay. All right, let's get that queen a little bit developed. Oh, look. Black has this giant force. Look at this. This knight's it's ready to freaking just... I mean, you don't even have to start attacking yet. You could have. You could start attacking. Okay, let's see. How's white going to develop? Okay. Go to there. Okay, yeah, you could start attacking. Let's break open a center. Let's try to trade off this queen here. Go here. Okay, well, he could go here, close it. Oh, that's even better for me. Actually, no, that's not that great for black. It's still winning for black. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I mean by it's better or worse. What I mean is there's always a best move. There's always a best move. Even if you're going to lose in one move after that, there is still a worse move. Difference between mate in 3 and mate in 20. That is a big difference. Especially if your opponent isn't a machine that can calculate a mate in 20. Because if they can't calculate a mate in 20, it might just end up being a draw. Which happened in the World Championship from 2,800 plus players. Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. There was a mate in 32 or something. And they didn't see it. So don't try to look ahead a bunch of moves. Just look ahead maybe one move, 2 moves. If you can see a really forcing line, then you can probably see like 5 moves or so. But anyway, I kind of got sidetracked about the opening there. I just want you... It's the reason most beginners lose. Is because they try to attack too early in the opening. They don't coordinate their pieces. Besides just like sacrificing pieces for no reason. This is not bad. This is not bad here. There's this pawn structure right here. You're in a really strong pawn structure. It's weakening this diagonal for black, so it's actually got an idea behind it. Because now, after I get my bishop here, it's going to take longer to get to that. That rook is really safe. It's not about the rook. What I mean by it's attacking the rook is this rook is going to have to move somehow now. Now, getting the bishop, if you played right here, if you played the book opening, it's called book for a reason, because it's the same kind of thing. It's got a knight active in this case. See, that's why this one's slightly better. Not because it says so in a book. I don't want people to... A lot of people just assume that because something's written down, that people who are good at that. Let me phrase this right. I feel like a lot of people who aren't as strong at the game and who are listening to people who are masters, grandmasters, whatever, just assume that they're just spouting dogma. And I don't think this lasts very long, because you can see for yourself after studying the game, you really cannot make stuff up in chess. Chess, even though, I mean, we're still figuring out the game. We have AI crunching games like, left and right, like thousands of games, and we still haven't figured out chess. It won't be figured out. And if it does, it won't change much, because it's a human game. And even though it's created by humans, and we've noticed even from AI, the strongest AI looking at the game, that there's certain things. I mean, it's changing certain, ideas that we've held on to for a while, because it's doing things that we've never thought of before in the opening. But at the same time, there's just certain things that just the game tells you how to play it. If you play the game enough and you look at each game, you will, even without outside help, you'll eventually get to a really high level. I mean, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of games, and the games are really long. When I say it's a lot of work, it hurts. Chess hurts. It's a good kind of stress. It's like, it's the kind of stress that you control, and it improves. It improves a lot of things. It's like, and as far as the game itself goes, it really pays off, and it doesn't really get. It's like running. And my brother will understand this more than me. Exactly, actually. When you're running, I was reading this in an article too. It never really gets easy, but in a way, it kind of does. Your body gets stronger, and you start being able to handle more, and it's not really easier. It's just that you're more equipped to handle it, and you're more accustomed to it. So the more chess you play, the more chess you analyze, probably read a few books, but even better than that, do a bunch of tactics puzzles. They have tactics puzzles online, puzzles. A couple a day, it's like, just get thinking about chess. You'll get better at chess. That's really all there. It's so simple, but it escapes so many people. They don't really realize, and it's not just chess, it's like cross disciplines. People think that they'll have this magic formula that if they start using such and such method, they will achieve, some kind of great thing. And usually it's accompanied with, in only 30 days, they say, become a chess master in 30 days. That's not going to happen. It might not even happen in a lifetime, to tell you the brutal, honest truth. It's extremely difficult to get better at chess, even if you're already good. I met a couple people who they played when they were young, and they got to 1800, 2000. They never got past 2000 their entire life. They stopped playing chess. It's kind of demoralizing. The thing is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, because you see that you're not doing very good, and then instead of working at it to get better, you start saying, oh, well, maybe I just shouldn't do it. And then it just gradually exits out of your life. And then people go their whole life, they haven't played a game of chess since. They could have been playing chess the whole time. They could have been going to tournaments, winning, it's not really about winning money, but they could have been winning money if they, push through it. But that's kind of the test. In order to become a master, you have to break through that. And that's what all the masters have done. That's what all the grandmasters have done. They've broken through the barriers. It doesn't matter what the barrier is. It's different for everybody. It's going to be, there's going to be a bunch of things that only people who have broken through it will understand. Like, there's barriers I've broken through, and I have a bunch to break through still. But one of those was looking at my games afterwards is the biggest thing you can do. Even just looking at the moves, like, not that fast, but just look at all the moves and think about, like, oh, what was I thinking there? What was I thinking with this? Oh, I was trying to protect. I was trying to go for the center, and I'm trying to get. Okay, I get these. It's not too much to talk about right in the opening. This is, but right here, this is where things. It's little micro inaccuracies. There is a kind of a decent pawn structure, and this is kind of leading into a fianchetto here with bishop g2, and that's more along the lines of that's called the Catalan system, if you want a name to it. The names are just there to help us. That's really all there. It's so we can put a word and a label to an idea that would be hard to talk about otherwise. So, okay, this so far so good. Okay, this is a little bit odd, but not too odd. That's not unheard of. You could have even checked if you wanted. It would have forced something. It would have helped me. You would have basically said, "Please develop. Please do something that'll help you and not me." You see, you got your queen here. Yeah, it's in a pin. Eventually, black's gonna put that bishop there, and then now you have to be really careful about where this knight can go, because if this bishop is here and this queen is still here, it's called a X-ray or a skewer or whatever we want to call it. What you can do is you can do a reveal attack. What that is okay. Let's say you didn't move the queen. Let's say you just developed this knight. Black played this bishop, and then you developed this knight here. I mean this bishop here. What black can do now is attack the queen for free. You can't take that. You're attacking the knight, yeah, but you're gonna lose a queen, buddy. And yeah, you get the knight, 2 knights, but look at. I mean, you can see this is already winning. I mean, I already know this is winning for black. It's not automatically winning. I need to set that straight. When somebody says that a position is winning, what they mean is that with even depending on the level of winning, with perfect play or with decent play, or just no blunders, as long as you don't blunder, you're gonna win. Then that's an easy. That's like totally winning. If you have like, here, let's I can go all the way to the end here. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's just say you give this away. This away. This is totally winning for black. 2 rooks. 2 rooks and a king. You don't even need the pawns. You want to get rid of the pawns? Get rid of the pawns. Here. Let's get rid of all the pawns. Let's get rid of all the pawns. Alright. Now, I can't get rid of those pawns. Oh, that would take too long. Oh well. This is clearly winning. You can deliver. See, you don't need to know the exact moves. You can figure that out when it happens. But just see that there's a clear material advantage here. Even if you took this rook off. If you just had this 1 rook. If you took this rook off, you only had 1 rook. It's still winning. And you need to know these. You need to know all these little, like, there's a, let me make a new chapter here. There. It's empty board. Okay. So, and now how to, yeah, I can do the board editor here. Alright. Now we have a board here. So, there's a couple different mating patterns that you need to know. 2 rooks, by themselves, can always mate a king. How do you do this? What you do is you cut off their escape route, they can't go over here. So you go down or whatever. You continue to do this. You kind of do it in like a little staircase. This has to... You always want to move your king towards the rooks. You're still going to lose, but that's the idea. That's the better move, is to move towards the rooks, because now you can't move there because the king will just take it. So black has to move these over first. You attack this one. You just move it. He's not going to get there in time. Checkmate. There is another one. The same idea with the queens. One rook cannot check the king cannot checkmate the king on its own. You need the rook and the king. And what you do with this one is you cut off their escape route, and you also want to kind of get them into the... You want to get to one of the sides of the board. Any one of the 4 sides. Get them to the side of the board, and then put your king in front of them so that they're right across. It's called opposition. Or make it... You have to basically make it... It's called Zugzwang. You have to make it so that your opponent moves in front of your king. And I don't mean right in front of it. I mean like this. Or it would be like this. Except the other way around. If you want to end up with this position. Somehow. And how you do that... Let's say this is here. This is here. You cut off... Okay, so you can't go up this way. You go to the side. You want to get to... Okay, cut off this way. You can start going down again. See, that's the problem, is you can start going back to the center. King goes to the center. Let's see. Get your king in. And you don't want to check. So they'll just move away. So cut off this escape route. You can't go this way. Can't go this way. So you go this way. Move your king in. Same idea. It's kind of tricky sometimes. A waiting move there. You gotta somehow... You notice you can go through these yourself on a board whenever. It's so you want a position where you can go like this, and then they have to move back. But the way you get to that, they'll start going to the rook. Oh no, you can't do that because they're going to attack. So they move. You do a waiting move. They go either way. This way, you can go that way. And they can't go forward because of the king. And if they go this way, then you move the king here. Or no, then you do that waiting move again until they go like this. It just takes a couple, like, you gotta kind of like, because every time you move, your opponent moves. It's gonna change. Doing a waiting move, see. Now that it's white to move, you can get out of opposition. But if white move instead... See, if black is moving into this, white can move out of it. But if you make a waiting move... Well, I guess that doesn't really help. The waiting move would probably be over here. So if you do a waiting move, then you could start... See, if they keep going to the corner, look what's going to happen. Then you get that position, and now it's black to move, and you can move them back. And then you do the same thing. They're trying to get out of... That's the whole idea. White's trying to get out of opposition. And they can't, because you're forcing it. And then you just keep moving up. This is one of the most common endgames is Rook and King. It's the best one to know. And if you know this one... endgames are something... that you need to understand, not because you need to memorize a whole bunch of different stuff, which you do, but and it's not that hard. You practice it enough, and you'll just be able to do it automatically, even with like 10 seconds on your clock. You'll be able to get a checkmate from a position like this. But the thing is, if you know these endgames, you know what your pieces can do. And if you know what your pieces can do, you know which ones you need to save for the end game, which means that your middle game is going to be your tactical play is going to be based on getting to an end game, which you can't really force a specific end game. What you can force is what you can do is you can think about how your pieces work, and that's the biggest issue beginners have is they do not respect the piece value. They see, oh, well, I just want to play my own way. I don't want to listen to the teacher because they're just saying, oh, this is worth 5 points. This is worth 1 point. The pawn's worth 1 point. Knight's worth 3 points. Bishop's worth 3 points. This is worth 5 points. This is worth 9 points. It doesn't really mean much to a beginner, and it's kind of hard to really explain it. The only real way to explain it is to get to endgames and to understand that 2 rooks by themselves can checkmate a king. 2 knights by themselves cannot checkmate a king. Even with a king, you need some... And by saying checkmate, I don't mean like somebody makes a mistake and then you checkmate them. What I mean is forcing a checkmate through good play. And in... Can I clear the whole board? Oh, clear board. Alright. So, even if you were down to just a king, as long as your opponent has a rook, I mean, you're always going to have a king. So as long as you have a rook and a king, or 2 rooks, or a queen and a rook, or 2 queens, or there's other ones too. 2 bishops and a king. This one's difficult. You got to do something. Let's see. It's got to cut off escape routes. You got to get into this kind of position like this somehow, and it's really kind of difficult. And it can lead to a draw or stalemate. Okay, difference between stalemate and draw. A lot of beginners do not understand draws and do not understand stalemates. And also, drawing is pretty common in chess. In fact, it should be about 33% of games. Because there's 33% wins, 33% losses, 33% draws. It's really common. And that's why the World Championship, a lot of people who aren't used to watching chess matches, especially my friend Tony, who has watched chess matches, but he did not understand that they weren't just willy-nilly going for a draw. It wasn't a weak, oh, I don't want to lose, so I'm going to go for a draw just so I can get more points. No. That's not how, especially World Championships. Maybe a tournament bracket, you're kind of just playing a tournament and you know that if you just get a couple draws, you can still get first in your section or whatever. I feel like that's kind of lame, but if you're playing to win, But, okay, draws happen, and there's different kinds of draws. There's 50 move rule draw, which is if you make 50 moves, like if you just shuffle okay, let's say these are in here. Well, first of all, insufficient material is a draw, so the 2 kings on the board by themselves is a draw. But let's say we didn't have that rule, and we just kept moving. Well, we're not moving any pawns. We're not moving we're not capturing anything. We're just shuffling pieces around. If you do 50 moves, which means this is 1 move. White moves, then black moves. It's called a ply, in case you're wondering. But 1 move is white is the first half move, and the second half of the move is black. So if you do that 50 times without moving a pawn or capturing a piece, you're basically just shuffling pieces around. That's a draw. If you have the same board position 3 times, and it doesn't have to be back to back. See, if you had this position before, it doesn't matter that you came from here. It's still the same position. If you do that 3 times, it's a draw. If your opponent can't move without putting themselves into checkmate, let's see. Yeah. If your opponent can't move without putting themselves into checkmate, like you can't move here. That's putting yourself into check. That's in check. That's in check. But you're not in check. That's a stalemate, which is a draw. A draw. Okay, the difference between stalemate and a draw. A stalemate is a specific position in chess. A draw is a result. If that makes any sense. There's 3 results. 1-0, which means white wins. 0-1 means black wins. And half, which means a draw. Which in a tournament, that's half a point for each player, which might mean the difference between a win and a loss. Because first place and second place or whatever, what have you. I haven't gone through tournaments. I only went to one, but I do plan on it. And there is a strategy for psychological, going into the tournament, and also based on your results. If you know that it's kind of helpful if you know that even if you draw, you're still going to get the same score, because then it's just you're focusing on not losing. Which, if you play strong enough, you can turn a draw. You can turn a loss into a draw sometimes. You can turn a draw into a win. So these players were not going in because this was a world championship match. That means one win can pretty much decide it. It most likely will. And they were playing for high stakes, world champion. Plus it was like over $1 million to the winner. And also either stay world champion or become world champion. That's a big deal. Really big deal. Life-changing. But in any case, they were playing their strongest. They were trying to outmaneuver their opponent, but they matched each other for every single classical game. In the rapid games, Carlsen showed that he was able to still beat him after all those matches, and with the quicker time control. So that's, he won 3 games in a row. That's one of his strengths, and I'm sure Caruana didn't want that to happen because he knew this would happen. Anyway, I digress. So let's get back to the game, or to the study. All right. Okay. So we have this. Okay. Oh, that's not the. What? Did that seriously say? I promoted a variation. Okay, this was make main line. There we go. I was like, what? I thought it deleted the game for a second. Okay, so like I said, not a bad move. This is what we call there's starting to be minor inaccuracies as we go further. The inaccuracies start to become mistakes. The mistakes start to become blunders, or not just blunders. They just start to become like there's no chance that white can come back. Right here, it's not really clear. It's pretty equal right here. I mean, black's about to castle, but all white has to do is move that bishop out and then castle. Plus you got this pawn chain. You bring your queen out. That's putting a lot of pressure on this pawn. So it influences how black responds. It's not strong or weak per se. It's not the strongest, I don't think. I don't know, actually. I think maybe this would have been best simply because it's preparing to castle. But this might be best too. So, castling, protecting your king. Remember, the name of the game is to checkmate your king, your opponent's king. Usually, this is achieved by having a superior force. I've heard somebody say once, SFW. Superior force wins. If you do not have a superior force in chess, you will lose. Unless you have some specific position that says otherwise. There are a couple games which you would have to look for. Big one was, I think there was a Paul Morphy game, they call it. I believe that's the game they call the Immortal game. No, that was Bobby Fischer, wasn't it? I don't know. It's not a big deal. It's just there's so many chess players and people pride themselves on memorizing certain games, but that's up to you. That's if you really like it. I'm not really into memorizing. I mean, I know who players are, but like a specific game, I don't think so. I just look at their games and I try to think about. I mean, I'm not strong enough at this point to completely memorize several games of specific players, like grandmaster players. Like some people are able to do that. Either that or they just really like the games for some reason. I don't know. Every game's exciting, so I always just look for. If I keep focusing on one game, I'll miss out on all the other games. There's basically 100,000 games a month from grandmasters. So think about that for a while. If you want to fixate on one game while 100,000 games are happening a month. All right, so this was required because you put your pawn on an important square for that knight. So this isn't bad. It's just usually there's a specific plan for this kind of knight setup, and you'd probably want to move that knight this way. Is what I'm thinking in this position. Like let's say I just went here. You probably go here, and let's say go here. Kind of. Say you castle. Say I bring this rook out, or no, I just make the pawn chain here. Move this rook. Let's say move this queen. Now you can start thinking how I'm gonna move that knight. It opens up for the bishop, and so now you're probably gonna want to. I can probably put that to rest right there, but then you can just go here. So that's probably not that great. I mean, that's protected, so I guess. But I mean, that opens up a lot of options like this. So, not so great. Forces this, which, actually, this works out better. And this pawn's under attack. Bring a rook over. But I digress. Which, if you haven't gotten the hint by now, chess is about digressing. Most of the time. Sometimes you want to focus, but you want to look at the things that you see. Even if it never happened in the game. Even if it never will happen. You want to look. You want to notice the behavior of the pieces. At least that's my view on it. There's obviously stronger players with stronger methods. And I wish I knew them, and I wish I had boatloads of money to pay them to tell me. But that's not. You can't always get a lesson. A lesson or two every now and then is a big deal. You can get a lot in like a 30-minute or an hour lesson. But what happened here in this game? Okay, let's see. Queen b3, castle, knight. Okay, see, I mean, we could just look at the game, but as you can tell, without the digressing, you're not really getting much. You're just looking at the game again, which, in itself, in and of itself, is decent, but that's not real analysis. Also, just loading up the game and asking the engine what it would have done is not gonna help you. It might. Like, in a specific position where you had, like, a tough choice and you didn't know which one is better, you're saying, and you're not really sure, like, which one to do, like, which move. Like, let's try to find one in this game. Let's actually try to find an example in this game. So, where I could have decided, okay, so should I have moved my pawn here? I think so. Because now after this... can't take here. Queen and knight. Another example from this game. Do I take with the knight? I think that might be better. because now you're looking at this pawn, which means it's not, you can't win that pawn because it's defended by the knight. But look at how the knight has to be there in order to defend that pawn. So you'd have to move this here before you can move the knight. It's what's called tempo, and that's usually how you make. This is like, it's like boxing. Chess is like boxing. You just kind of poke and prod and like shift your opponent until they're in a until you get what you want, really. Like, because I'm attacking this pawn, you have to defend it somehow. But if I were to attack this knight with that bishop, well, that doesn't work out too well. I'll be back. I'm taking a break.